Good morning, and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes, and it is Friday the 3rd of November 2023. Almost over another year with the Tories in charge of the country, another year of the economy tanking in real terms, another year of absolute dysfunction and lunacy. The lunacy was on full display. This morning, if anyone cared to peruse the gutter papers, because Mad Nads is back, and she's madder than ever because she wasn't turned into a lord. So she's having a pop at someone in Downing Street who was a top fixer. Let's have a look at the headline for a moment. Sorry if you've just eaten your breakfast or you're eating breakfast while watching this. Maybe just put your spoon down for a second. Here we go. Daily Mail exclusive. Shadowy Tory number 10 fixer who had pet rabbit butchered in mafia style, warning to his ex-girlfriend. So this is going to be in Mad Nads' book, which the Daily Mail is touting as the political book of the year, which I would have thought would be Russell Jones's Four Chancellors and a Funeral. But no, apparently it's going to be Nadine Dorries, dishing the dirt on other people in number 10. This is obviously someone who's crossed her, but the thing is, it could be anyone. It says girlfriend, so you kind of think, well, it can't be someone who's married. But then you remember, it's the Tory party. So, yeah, it could be anyone. And it's not something that you read and go, oh, that couldn't possibly be true. Not them. You know, if you read that about David Attenborough, you'd be like, what? No, David Attenborough would never do such a thing to his girlfriend. Why would he do that? That's just not, that's not in the realms of possibility. But with the Tory party, it is. And if you think about it, if you found out that Matt Hancock and a friend of his murdered a prostitute in Vegas and buried a body out in the desert, would you be surprised? Would you be shocked to your core? Oh my God, how could someone of such moral certainty commit such a heinous act? Now you'd just be like, yeah, I could see them doing that. That's how low the Tories have brought political discourse in this country. It's not just Dominic Cummings's sweary rants in his WhatsApp messages about his colleagues, but it's about the actual what's the word for it? The ouvert. No, that's a bit pretentious. It's about the feeling that people get when they think about the government, and the whole mood has shifted now from a kind of, I don't know, people were always a little bit sus about politicians, especially if they were on the other side of the political aisle to what they voted for. But this is off the charts. This is just every single day a new grotesque fact comes out about these Tories, and I can't stop looking because it makes me laugh and smile and that makes me feel good at the stats. I know it sounds very sad to be looking at stats and getting giddy about them, but only 1% of 18 to 24-year-olds intend to vote Tory in the next election. And also, on top of that, millennials and Generation Zers are becoming more left-wing as they get older. This has never happened before. I think it was Churchill who said, if you're not a liberal or a socialist at the age of 20, you've got no heart. If you're not a conservative by the age of 40, you've got no brain. Well, I'm 44 and I am definitely not conservative in any way, shape or form. I don't want the Tories just beaten in this next election. I want them ground to dust and scattered to the four winds. I don't want them to be a political entity anymore in this country that could possibly ever form a government. I want them to just go away into the shadows, team up with their dickhead mates in Reclaim, Refruc, or Reform, or whatever, and go away. I want them to shut up and go away, like Gavin Williamson once threatened the Russians. Oh, Gavin, it looks like they put a bomb on the plane that we're in because, Putin wants us dead. Oh, well, just tell him to shut up and go away. Okay, Gavin. Wow. All right. It's what we call the Frank Spencer response. Anyway, so I'm just going to jump into the chat for a moment, see what people are talking about. Good morning, everyone. There's a lot of mornings. Got a lovely bunch of Latin coconuts. And then we've got Ben, Dorries and Rabbits. Always got that Glenn Close vibe from her in particular. Well, was she the one who got the rabbit? That's the question. Dominic Cummings, ooh, that mouth on her. And then we've got hatred. That's what I feel when I think about this government. Yeah, Rob, same here. They are the worst of us. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. They are the absolute worst of us. They are a gang of privileged dickheads who don't know how anything works, don't know how to do anything. They have no discernible skills whatsoever except being born rich. That's their only skill. That is it. That's the one. But then you have people like Nadine Dorries who can argue working class upbringing in Liverpool. But the reality is she's gone in with these far right wing nuts because she felt an affinity with them. Why do you think that might be? But her and Esther McVeigh and that other woman who's from Liverpool, Gillian McKeegan, is it? The education secretary. All three of them. I don't think they'll ever be allowed in Liverpool ever again. Build a wall on the M62. Don't let them in. Pick up the Mersey tunnels. Good morning, Labour Social and attendees. Hope this day finds you well and that Kieran didn't cause damage where you live. Indeed, we had another storm yesterday. Storm Kieran. Well, actually, the last few days, rolling in over Ireland and then the north and the southwest and down into the Isle of Wight and then down into the Channel Islands and caused absolute carnage. Luckily, so far, I don't think anyone's died, which is the good news of it. But the bad news is there'll be another storm. There'll be another, and then another storm, and then another storm. Start getting used to it. This is the future. This is the future that the Tories are giving us. This is the future that the rabid right-wing lunatics have given us. And I've got to the point now where I'm kind of zero tolerance on people supporting this nonsense. Like when I see memes against electric cars, I'm just blocking people now. Well, I might leave them a nasty message saying why are you spreading this oil giant propaganda when the both Shell and BP posted record profits again this quarter. Great, thanks. I'm glad someone's enjoying the end of the world. Yay, because someone's having a good time. As the amount of emissions that we fire off into the atmosphere continues to rise. One of the reasons why the Tories might have had a little bit of copium, as Phil likes to call it, over the last few months is that they won in Uxbridge, only by about 500 votes, but they did win in Uxbridge. And a big thing there was ULEZ. Now, I was reading an article about ULEZ today in Bylines Times, which is well worth having a read of. And it was about the fact that, as Phil predicted, it's fine. Like, it's fine. Nearly everyone now has a car that complies with ULEZ. There were people who thought they had an electric car and they thought that it was going to have to pay £12.50 a day to go out. It didn't. I mean, the petrol cars, it's anything going back to 2005. If your car is that old and not a classic, I mean, it's probably rusting around its wheels anyway. I mean, just, yeah. And they had a scrappage scheme where you got £2,000 on to scrap your car essentially, and you can get a decent little, I don't know, a Ford Ka or something for less than that. I mean, it's not like everyone needs a Chelsea tractor to get around. But what it has done is, like, almost instantaneously improved the air quality in London, and also it's removed over 700,000 tons of CO2. I mean, that wasn't the main aim of the ULEZ scheme. It was to stop 4,000 Londoners dying a year of pollution, essentially, respiratory problems. And the fact that I think it's over 500,000 children have asthma in London. That's pretty disgraceful. People have asthma as a result of all the pollution. So you've got the forces that are not evil trying to improve the air, the water, the life of people in this country. And then you've got the forces of evil, the Tory party and the oil companies. You don't need to do their bidding. You don't need to share stuff saying, oh, electric cars blow up all the time. Do you know, blow up all the time? Internal combustion engine cars. The clue is in the name, combustion. It's a combust. But eventually it means to explode. Internal exploding engine. Because that's what happens. It's little explosions, drives the pistons round, and yeah, the car goes, the car trundles along in the most inefficient way I could possibly imagine, considering that the fuel for that enterprise needs to be dug out the ground in Saudi Arabia or Angola or Papua New Guinea, and then brought across the world in a big dirty oily tanker ship that uses the worst possible oil, and then it goes here, and then it has to be transferred, then it has to be diffracted or whatever it is, and then that loses loads of energy, and then it has to be, is it distillation? Fractal distillation? Is that it? Is that it? Someone tell me in the chat. And then it gets all sent out to all these petrol stations in lorries, more pollution, more. Or you could set up a wind turbine and plug your car into it. I mean, the engine, the battery might explode. There's been at least 12 of them in the world out of the million electric cars that have been sold so far, but they might explode. I mean, the same lies. I mean, you got to understand how just much power the oil companies and the automobile companies have. The automobile companies do not want to make electric cars because there's less to go wrong. So it's not really in their interest. There's a good documentary, I've mentioned it before, called Who Killed the Electric Car? And it was about the EV that was introduced by General Motors in the 1990s in California. And the story about that is absolutely mind-blowing. Essentially, they wouldn't let anyone buy these cars. They would only let them lease them. And they were like Hollywood stars who were buying these cars. Leasing them. And the demand for them was huge. They only made like 1,000 of them, because they were only making them because they were kind of forced to by the Californian government, and then the Californian government changed to the scumbags, the Republicans who don't care, and they got rid of these Clean Air Act laws that the Democrats had brought in, and the automobile companies were like, great, and GM turned up to everyone's house the next day and said, can we have our car back, please? And people were like, no, I like my car. And it's like, no, it's not yours. You were just leasing it. You see, there's the deal. You were just leasing it. You didn't actually own it. So we're going to take it back now. Bye. And they drove it away. And then they crushed them and put them in the desert. I'm not even kidding. Watch the documentary. Anyway, so Tories, Republicans, oil companies, arms manufacturers, tobacco barons, all of them, just absolute scum. And also, we saw this week, tech giant lunatics like Elon Musk and Zuckerman of Facebook fame. Oh my god! And Meta, the metaverse, into the metaverse where people don't have legs and everything looks like a virtual reality show from the 1990s that used to be on BBC Two. There was a virtual reality show. Do you remember that? No, somewhere in my head there were people having to run on a treadmill, and they were. I don't know. It was rubbish. Anyway, moving swiftly on. What about Hancock wanting to choose who lives and dies? Indeed, Richard. That's a very good point. I was going to make a video about this today. So you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Because you've watched enough of these videos, I hope, so far. Anyone new? Hi, how you doing? If you want to add to the chat here, just subscribe, and then you can. If anyone wants to throw in a super chat, that would be great, because we're not doing the agenda today because I'm heading back to Durham. But we'll be doing the Labour Social tonight, so tune in for that at 9 o'clock. But yeah, Matt Hancock, privately educated, went to King's School, Chester, and he learnt there to that he should be in charge of everything, in the same way that Boris Johnson, when he was in Eton, learnt that he should be the world king, and that Rishi Sunak, when he was in Winchester, learnt that he should be prime minister, even though he has no discernible talent of being prime minister. I mean, the thing is, Boris Johnson is kind of like affable, and I can see why people find him funny or want to be his mate. I obviously wouldn't, but I can see why. I get it. But he's absolutely useless at being governing, at making a decision. We knew this all through COVID. We knew this back in the days when we were fighting Brexit, and he had written 2 articles, one supporting staying in the EU and the other one supporting leaving the EU. He wrote 2 articles, and then he had dinner with the son of a KGB agent, and he decided to go for let's break the UK away from Europe. That'll be good for Russia. No one else, just Russia. He was incapable of making decisions. He went on holiday in February 2020 as this pandemic raged across the world, and you've got to understand, like, the thing about COVID is we had never experienced it before. People talked about it being like Spanish flu. It wasn't, because it was so quick to spread around the world because of jet travel, like plane travel. Like it was different. It was a different kettle of fish because even though the virus itself might have been slightly less virulent or deadly or whatever, that doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is the fact that it was so easily spread around the world, which had never been the situation before. Because with stuff where we had like an outbreak of Ebola or something like that, everyone would come around and shut down all the airports and make sure it didn't get out of where it had started from. This was already around the world before anyone sort of noticed. And Boris Johnson had 10 days off. He turned his phone off for 10 days. For 10 days. I was thinking about this. Since I got a phone, my first mobile phone, which was back in the late 90s, I guess, when I was in university, I've not had it off for 10 days. Like, I couldn't. I mean, since we started doing this channel, we've produced content every day. Why is my green screen not working? Do you know what? It's because the sun's gone behind a cloud. And I'm in a room and there's windows. And now there's not so much light behind me. And that's keyed out. Anyway, he went on holiday for 10 days and turned his phone off. Unbelievable. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom with a pandemic closing in. But he was taught to do that. But then Rishi Sunak, right, not only can he not make a decision, look at his U-turns on train station, ticket offices and train stations, look at his U-turn on HS2, look at his U-turn on the onshore wind farms. He's flip-flopped all over the place on that. He can't make a decision for shit. And also his 5 pledges that he made, he's not done any of them. Thank you very much for One Angry Pagan for the super chat there. Great start to my new year. Tories setting each other up everywhere. Lol. Johnson is and always a vile cretin and surrounded himself with company in kind. It's no surprise we are where we are now. Indeed. Spanish flu equals fake news. It started in the US. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, Stephen, you are actually right. They called it Spanish flu because I think it started in like St. Louis or somewhere in America. That's like, but they called it Spanish flu because they want to blame someone else for it, which is one of the reasons why with COVID. Remember we had like the Mexican strain, and then we had the French strain, and we had the Japanese strain or something. And they started saying, no, don't call it that, because then they get the blame for this shit. It was just first identified in that particular country, so they started to call it the Delta wave and the Epsilon wave or whatever. But yeah, Spanish flu did not originate in Spain. It was propaganda made up by the Americans to make people think, yes, very, very good point, Stephen. Anyway, back to, I got another super chat. Thank you very much. Super chat won't let me post anything using a certain party name or names of party people. Not very super. Sorry about that, Johnny, but thank you very much for the super chat. I actually have a list now of all of the words that you can't say if you want to stay monetized. Someone's helpfully made a Google Doc with all of the words that I have to avoid. There's some weird ones in there. Maybe we'll do a video in which all the video is just me saying all the words that will get us demonetized, just to see if it works. Anyway, so back to Rishi Sunak. So Rishi Sunak is just as indecisive as Boris Johnson. He's just as useless as a leader, but he doesn't have any of that warmth or charm that Boris Johnson gives to certain groups of the public who believe in Boris Johnson. And so he's like in a way, he's worse than Boris Johnson, and not least because he doesn't want the job. Just like Boris Johnson didn't actually want the job, he just wanted the accolade. Rishi Sunak's in it for the money. Look at him. He is in it for the money. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. He is already worth over £700 million. I mean, that's nearly $1 billion. $1 billion freaking dollars. And he is doing rather well out of Emphasis, which is going to be investing very heavily in AI. I wonder who had the AI thing this week. Did someone have an AI thing this week with Elon Musk? I seem to remember that happening. But yeah, I'm sure his share prices went up in Emphasis, which are going to go up again. Going to get a huge bump in the wake of any kind of UK-India trade deal. And I don't know what's happening with that at the moment. It seems to be a bit on hold, but I could imagine in the run-up to an election, the Tories, in absolute desperation, going, okay, we'll take anything. Rishi Sunak will be happy because the more the deal is stacked against us in Britain, for people in India to an extent, so the rich in India, not the poor, not the people working in the sweatshops, it'll make their lives worse. But the rich people in India, like Rishi Sunak's father-in-law, will do really, really well out of that deal, especially if it opens up India to more services with tariff-free access to the British market. So you can expect a lot more Indian people working not just in India but also over here, because I could see them saying, "Yeah, we'll take in an extra million people from India every year. That's fine. Anything, just get the deal through." Because once the deal goes through, then they have their nice headline that goes into the gammon press, the gammon press. You press the gammon, and the Mail, and the Express, and the Tory Graph, and all those scum bastard newspapers run by foreign-owned or non-dom scum billionaires who just want to spread their shitty propaganda about how climate change is a hoax, and that trans people shouldn't have rights because reasons. The idea that if you're poor, it's because you're feckless and you're lazy. It's only lazy people who are poor, and hardworking people are born rich. You see, that's how it works, and go to the really posh schools and only ever talk to people in their posh schools. That's the way it works. Thank you very much to Johnny Copperhead, but it lets me say Scunthorpe. Well, that's good, Johnny. Thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Just the fact that the Tories have sunk this low to the point where they are consistently 20 points ahead in the polls for over a year now. And the damage they have done in that process is just off the absolute charts. Last Tory Christmas, says Gary Arnold. Oh yes. That sounds great. I mean, the fact that we've got to go through at least another maybe 6 months, 9 months, 12 months of this shit is painful, but yeah. The 7 deadly bins. Yeah, Infosys made a great deal with a big oil company just around the time Sunak decided to sell off all those drilling licenses in the North Sea. Coincidence, of course, nothing to see here. Yeah, BP and Infosys had a huge $1.5 billion deal, which came just around the same time that all these oil licenses went up in the North Sea. Now, the problem is at the moment is that the rate of climate change is accelerating. It's the hockey stick effect that Al Gore warned us about 20 odd years ago. But yeah, it's looking like very much we're stuffed, because instead of putting less pollutants, CO2, into the atmosphere, we're actually putting more. Each year, more and more and more. We are not going to get to 1.5. In fact, we might get 1.5 this year. 1.5 degree of warming on average above the usual. The pre-industrial average. And that's terrifying, because it just means more storms, more storm Kierans, more tornadoes. We had a tornado in the UK. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't remember that many tornadoes in the UK when I was a kid. I mean, some dust devils, but not a full-on tornado that rips the top off someone's house. Tangent, but do you like the song Now and Then? I had the bootleg MP3. Love that song, Guardian. I love it. I was at the Beatles story yesterday in the Albert Dock, and they were showing, I was in the cafe there, and they were showing the documentary about it being made. And then they played the song at 2 o'clock, which was really nice. And as a Scouser and a Beatles fan and someone who grew up with the Beatles, I liked it. It's a nice song. I mean, it's not going to set the world on fire. It's no Day in the Life or Let It Be or anything, but it's poignant. I found it really poignant and a bit sad. I got a bit sad listening to it, just because I think about the amazing stuff that the Beatles could have continued to do through the 80s and 90s had obviously we lost George Harrison in 2001, but what we could have had at that scumbag in America hadn't shot John Lennon in December 1980. All that talent lost for what? So this guy could become famous. They'd be famous as the guy who shot John Lennon. The lunatics and guns, eh? America. Jeff, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Thank you very, very much. I liked watching the little documentary they made about it as well. It was screened on the BBC, I think, the day before, and then they had it on at the Beatles Museum. here in Liverpool, and they had sorry, they're going off on a bit total tangent here, but I like the fact that they had John's voice on it. They had George's guitar parts that he recorded back in the '90s for the three songs. There was Free as a Bird. Free as a Bird. I can't remember them now. Real Love was it? And then Now and Then was the third song, and the audio quality of John's parts wasn't good enough, so they decided to shelve it. But now with AI, they were able to recreate it brilliantly. I heard there's someone I follow on TikTok called There I Ruined It, and they take a classic song and they get another artist to sing it using AI, and it's perfect. Like, you honestly, you play this, you're like, oh my god, is that not them? And he's done one for Johnny Cash covering the Taylor Swift song Blank Space, and it is brilliant. It's so good. And I'm like, I feel guilty enjoying it so much because I'm like, okay, so Johnny Cash did not consent to this. It's AI and therefore a bit creepy. And, I don't think that a country and western, well, I mean, Taylor Swift started in country and western, but, I don't know if she should be, if this should be covered in this way, but it's really good. It's almost as good as Hurt. Ooh, I've got to cause some trouble in the chat there. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, George Harrison, Vincent Moore, brilliant. Yeah. What were they called? The Traveling Wilburys, was it? Was that Bob Dylan and George Harrison? Britannia Unhinged sounds like a good nickname for Liz Truss. Oh, mate, that's brilliant. Britannia Unhinged. I've got to nick that. That's brilliant. The UK has more tornadoes per unit area than anywhere else. They're not the big ones. That's what I mean. They're dust devils. Come on. It's not like it's going to whisk your house away and take you to Kansas, take you to the land of Oz. I saw the bootleg Beatles. They were great. Yeah, I saw the bootleg Beatles in Glastonbury. I think it was 2017, maybe 2017. They usually played on like the Sunday morning. And they're absolutely brilliant. I think, it was 2017 because I think it was the 50th anniversary of Sergeant Pepper's, and they all wore the Sergeant Pepper's uniforms to come out. Graham, not sure if you'll notice, but there's a lot of modern artists ruining older songs. Lol. Well, this is someone who's not a modern artist, someone who's dead. Ruining a modern song. So it's the other way around. But yeah, it was quite fun. My favorite Lennon track is still Instant Karma. All I can think now is I kind of want someone to do Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift, but sung by Kurt Cobain. Come on, if you're watching this and you have the technology, go on, just do it for me. Imagine if, this is from One Angry Pagan, imagine if HIV had been treated as it should have been, we could have still had Freddie Mercury. Damn the anti-gay brigade. Yeah, very, very good point. And if people being gay was accepted as it should have been in the 1970s and 80s, and people didn't have to cover it by getting married, as I think both Elton John and Freddie Mercury both got married because they had to show that they were normal. Normal. And the response against AIDS at the time was horrific. It was originally called like GRIDS. It was like gay related immunodeficiency syndrome or something like that. And it was seen as something that you only got if you were gay or you were you were a drug user, you were an intravenous drug user. And it was just so horrible in the 1980s that you had these governments around the world, including the US and the UK, just not giving a crap about this pandemic that was killing people, or epidemic, I guess, that was, killing thousands and thousands of people in the most horrific way. And it wasn't in America. We had George, what's his name? Not dickhead. Ronald Reagan in charge at the time. And it wasn't until his good friend Rock Hudson literally died of AIDS in front of him that they started taking it seriously in America. Had they done that earlier, then things could have got moving a lot quicker, and we could have had a situation like we achieved in the 90s, which was that we had the antiretrovirals, which meant that if you are HIV positive, you can stop that developing into full-blown AIDS. But that research just wasn't done because there was no money allocated to it, because they were like, well, it's just killing gay people. Who cares? The worst people. The people on the right are just the worst. There's no two ways about this. They are just the worst. Thank you very much to Colin Baker there. $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. Yesterday, I read Theresa Coffey being named Nelly the Effluent. Brilliant. Oh my god. There's some. I mean, yeah, I think comedy is going to take a bit of a kicking once all these scumbags are out of office and Trump's in jail next year. But all this to look forward to. All this to look forward to. Things can only get better because they can't get any worse. Our rivers are filled with shit. Our economy hasn't grown in 16 years. The air is unbreathable. The amount of money where we're having to spend just to stay alive is through the roof, and people who have 2 or 3 jobs are having to use food banks. Nurses are having to use food banks because of the cost of living at the moment, and everything is just unbelievably crap. But the sun has come out here in Liverpool, and I'm just an optimist. I'm just an optimist. This is why want people to go, Labour would be just as bad. I'm like, oh, even if they were run by a feckless, coked up bin bag filled with custard who didn't give a crap about leading and just wanted to be prime minister for the shit and giggles, just wanted to get drunk all the time on the job, they would still be better than the Tories. I know that sounds a bit mad, but they would still be better than the Tories. Like, honestly, there's literally nothing Labour could really do now and not be, and be worse, or even just as bad, because they're just not. But the 2 things, and I'll keep saying this until everyone's got, this in their head. There are 2 things that Labour have that the Tories will never have. One is accountability. The Tories, no one holds them to account. You looked at the newspapers this week, at all the revelations from the COVID inquiry, and there was no attacking Boris Johnson in the Mail or the Express. It was like, oh, isn't Dominic Cummings a wrong good? And the other thing is accessibility. I can talk to Labour. You can talk to Labour. They're a lot more accessible than the Tory party. The Tory party, oh my God, if you are not a millionaire, step away from me, you peasant scum. So 2 major differences. Even if if everything else, policies, leadership, everything was exactly the same as the Tories, they still wouldn't be as bad because they wouldn't get away with it. Simple as that. And they're not going to get away. They're not going to get away with it. One of the reasons why we set up this channel was to help hold Labour to account once they are in office. Touch wood. Touch wood. Wooden chair next to me. Van Man did a video on the fascists protecting Spaffer. Yeah, they do. I mean, they close ranks, don't they? Everyone have a great weekend, says Captain Bart Roberts. Yes, please, everyone have an awesome weekend. Sorry if things went a bit shit yesterday with the storm, and you're going to be spending the weekend clearing up or sorting things out or organising insurance and things. I'm really sorry. We need to do more to protect the environment because this is what happens. You mess with Mother Nature, yeah, Mother Nature will mess with you 50 million times over. So listen, I'll be back at 9 tonight for the Labour Social. Don't know who'll be joining us. It's all a bit ad hoc, the Labour Social. I don't think you know this, but the way it works is literally I have like a little group chat that send the link to come on to, and people just turn up, and it's just like a bit of a free for all. So people can turn up and people can leave because I want to make it like a social, like going down the pub. Your mates turn up and they tell oh great to see you, and then you have a bit of a chat about stuff. And that's why we go down rabbit holes and off on tangents and all that kind of stuff. Because that's the Labour Social. That's what I wanted it to be. So that's what we have created. So I'll be back at 9 with that. In the meantime, I'll be putting together a moment of truth later today. By the way, if anyone has any suggestions for things that you want me or Phil to talk about on this channel, please feel free to put something in the comments below, because we do read the comments and say, oh, we'd like to see you talk about this. We do something about Matt Hancock wanting to decide who lives and who dies, etc., because that was suggested, and I think that's a good idea to do a video on that. Captain Bart Roberts, that's something you can never get over. Too many people died because of the prejudice of people. COVID has the benefit of little old ladies being affected, i.e. Tory voters. Yeah, indeed. But it's the same people. It's the same people who are making these decisions who are horrible again and again and again. Do you know what I mean? Like throughout the ages, you find that the people on the right are just inhuman in the way that they view their fellow humans and animals as well. I mean, if this headline's true about a top Tory advisor cutting up a bunny rabbit, I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people? Well, you know, I like to sum up what's wrong with these people in just one word: everything. All right, well, listen, I'm going to get off now. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for Super Chats. And you have a bloody good day, bloody good weekend if I don't see you. And if I do see you, it will be at the Labour Social, 9 o'clock tonight, here on this Bat channel. Until then, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.